Okay, there we go. Oh no, thank you. So sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, this is a 1400. I'm gonna love you forgot. Oh, there we go. Be more clear about it. Yep, 1 hour is still not good enough. I want one day, one day, right? One day RL, right? Like if they come back the second day, they can be here, like they can talk here. But I'm just like, man, like one day, right? One day is good, yeah. I can like it. See, it's like it's all no. Number two, you're good. You don't annoy me. You know what I'm saying? You don't. You know what I'm saying? You're always relentlessly positive. You don't offer critique. You're just good. You're one of the good ones. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sorry I kicked you before. I suspected that you were with this cabal of hackers. But then I just looked at your history and I was like, no, I was wrong. I'm sorry about that. I have this cabal of hackers been attacking me for a long time because I just don't need their bullshit. And, I won't do it. I don't do their lifestyle or whatever of being a loser. So, uh, yeah. There we go. Oh wait, no, and then I want to delineate here. We have to give me just a second, sorry. Ah, damn mobs when I'm fucking with something is so annoying. Get me out of here. Okay, so it's like swatting bugs all the time. And it's like, guys, if you just stayed away from my face, you would be fine. You could just take over the room, and I'm gonna ignore you. Like you could be mosquitoes and try to suck my blood. If you would just stay out of my face, you're good. They're kind of like little bugs. Stay out of my fucking face, and you're good. It's just like you could have just been quiet. You could have just been quiet or said something positive like Windows sucks, huh? Or you really hate Windows, huh? Yeah, and I'm like, yep, I do. Yep. And I would have. It could have just been a positive comment, but maximum filtering, maximum filtering, maximum filtering. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Eh. I love my automod. Best thing I ever got. Fuck yeah. All right. There we go. Now we're done with that, and we can go back to it now. Listen to some more Rykon and move on with my fucking day. You know what I'm saying? I don't want kids in here. This is not a fucking daycare. They can come in and sit in there. I can't stop them. But I wanted to state clearly that this is not a stream for kids. Sure, it's video games, but it's not a stream for kids. It's not. It's full of like, you know, it's full of like adult and violent themes. Sometimes sex. Sometimes dark stuff on the internet. No, I don't care about Counter-Strike. I'm not 17 years old. Sorry, you know. It's like weird, you know. It's like, sorry. And at that point, you're like, it's weird. Like, man, like okay, there's, you know. There's a lobby full of CSGO streamers, millions of them. Like, let's go look. Or not millions of them, but there's how many channels in CSGO? A lot. You know what I'm saying? So we go and we look and we see. Yeah, I'm on display capture right now. So, like, if we look at like Twitch, right, and we go to Twitch, this is the other thing. I'm like, I know that I pulled a lot of kids because of Rust. But I mean, like, I never said I was a kid's channel. I never did. I mean, I never made that statement. If we come to CSGO or whatever, yeah, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you're going to see 61,000 viewers. Look at all these cool kids their age who are nice people and haven't been stomped by the government, the system, and everybody they've ever met. Look at the nice people. See? They're wearing nice clothes and nice jewelry, and they have money, and they're happy people and stuff. Look at the cool live Apex versus Fnatic right now. Well, like, you know, we can come follow these people. Since I looked at them, I'm going to come follow at them. Fuck them. Or not fuck them, but, you know, fuck it. Excuse me, not fuck them, but fuck it, you know. And there we go. And I got ad roll, but so we're gonna mute the ad for just a minute while we watch. And in 18 seconds, you're gonna see 5 seconds of this stream. You know what I'm saying? Gonna drop. Okay, got it right. No attempts at auto passing or any of this stuff, right? Blah blah. Yep. Oh, I have, oh yeah, 10-minute chat. Yeah, that's good. So, cool. So, look at this cool stuff going on, right? Full of young men who are happy, who were never hunted by the government, or, you know, like, who never had a man try to kill him with a circular saw, you know, like, you know, kind of shit. Normal people. There's a world out there full of normal people who love CSGO, but you're down at in like a 3 viewership stream, 4 viewership stream, talking to some boomer who's playing like New World, you know? And I'm not saying I didn't, it's not like that my approval of him matters, but I'm saying, like, I guess I never should have played Rust. It sucks. I drew the wrong, you know, I'm realizing now that Rust is a really crucial mistake because I drew the wrong age of, you know, the wrong age of like, you know, demographic off that, and they're liable to make all of them, pretty much almost all of them have stepped on me in some way or form. Where I'm like, yeah, I've considered it to be sort of like disrespectful a little bit. And so I banned them all for individual reasons, assuming they were all from the same cabal. And I didn't know, you know, and I went with the side of banning, thinking that anybody still in here would have been anybody watching me on Rust, right? So chronologically, anybody left in the channel, kind of being snarky and hidden on this and kind of subtle on the side, is like all the weird subtle weirdos that I picked up in Rust. And I'm just gonna say it on stream now. Playing Rust was a mistake. It is now I think I am like full blown done with Rust. And I've said this like on stream like 7 times, but this time I mean it. I think like fucking like I think I am full blown Rust. But this time I began to understand how crucial of a mistake it was to identify my channel with that age range and with that demographic. and I'm understanding it now. And I'm not talking about like about some judgment about their generation. They're fine. Those people are good. I'm talking about. I don't think it mixes. Like what I call disrespectful, I think is a lot different from what they call disrespectful. And you see them in my kick chat coming back at me with comments like this, literally like with comments like this, where they're like, what are they like? They're like, let me pull this here. They're like, uh, literally you'll see it. They're like, hey Skycat, you just banned me in Twitch. I'm sorry if my question offended you. I was like asking like if you were awesome by asking if you were that dude. Sorry, it's Gen Z slang. Didn't mean to offend, my man, right? And that's it. That's the problem. Like that's the problem. I'm liable to misunderstand their slang. I'm fucking twice their age. I don't really think they should be in my channel. I guess like I could also put like I'm kind of shooting for boomers here, not kids, right? I guess I should say it in the channel, and I'm gonna delineate in the channel right now. I'm looking for older, more mature players. You know, I'm just gonna say it in my fucking channel, and if they understand, maybe they'll leave me alone. You know, so we come back to the moderation. I say I'm looking for. This I'm looking for I'm looking for a much older audience, guys. I'm sorry. Like, do not slip upper band. I made it a lot more clearer. I think this is my fault. Some of this stuff. They're like, oh, cool. I can just hang out with him. Yeah, if you're just watching the stream in the background, yeah. And you can do so on Kick or YouTube. Nobody's stopping you. If you want to be in the Twitch channel, be nice and keep it clean and nice, and you can. Otherwise, go find me on YouTube and Kick, by the way, guys. I know you can find me other places, right? I don't mean any disrespect to you. I'm just saying that, like, I'm sorry. Go find me on YouTube or some other place where I just don't read your comments at all, and we're good. Because like if I'm gonna read your comments on Twitch, I cannot have anything even remotely second guessing me or critiquing me. And if you were running the stream, your own stream, you would feel the same way. You would never allow someone that even felt like or even remotely felt like they had a vibe of disrespect. You just wouldn't handle it. You wouldn't take it if it was your stream. I'm gonna live by the example. I'm gonna be the change that I want to see. If you don't want these people around you, then you probably shouldn't, then you probably shouldn't, then you really probably shouldn't, like, I don't know. It's like I'm sorry, then you shouldn't have them around you. You should just ban them. And I feel like that's how I'm kind of at it now. And like, I know this is now like the third or fourth time I've done this where I got a lot of attention really fast and then I just cancel most of them because I begin to realize that I don't think they're the crowd that I want. I don't want young, little Eichmann CSGO players from Rust. I don't want them. They haven't been helpful to me. Their generation has been wonderful, but those trolls have not been nice to me. And I'm saying they've not, and I'm sorry, but like now I have a negative connotation between Rust and CS:GO now. You know what I'm saying? Because the last little bit of disrespect that I've got at all, it has been in these communities. I don't have a thick skin in those communities and stuff. I just don't. So I'm at it. Like I guess you could call it basically a tied up sort of like censored, careful stream. But I mean, I don't know what else it can be. I don't know what else it can be. I didn't come here seeking drama. I didn't come here seeking comments. I don't care what you think. I don't, I'm sorry, but I don't care what you think about me banning you. I mean, and it's a problem, so I try to be upfront about this stuff. I thought maybe with the moderation and the comments and the warnings and stuff, it's best to just leave me on in the background and just not push it. You know, it's hard. A lot of people come here, they're looking for friends. I'm not looking for friends, and I'm going to say that too. I'm not looking for friends. I'm going to say right in the moderation. I'm not looking for this is I'm really 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 not looking for new friends. I'm really, really not looking for new friends. I'll say it right now. I know it's a psycho fucking chat thing. I don't care. I'm not looking for new friends. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm not. I want an audience. There's a difference. I'm not looking for friends. I'm not looking for people who offer some comment about me. I'm sorry, but I'm not. That's just not the vibe. And I'm going to be as clear as I can in the chat. And every day, I'm going to edit it and fix it until it's very fucking clear. And it's very, like, you know, it's very concise. And I know it's a long warning right now, but I really mean it. I struggle with, like, being able to do this on a social level where, like, I'm not king of this. You understand? If I'm not, okay, like, if I'm not holding court like Henry the fucking Eighth and off with their fucking heads, something's really fucking wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like Henry the Eighth. Now we're gonna go learn about what Henry the Eighth for dummies, right? I'm like Henry the Eighth, off with their head. The oversimplified of Henry the Eighth, right? Is really good. We'll do an oversimplified of Henry the Eighth. Like, I will chop off your head. I don't care. Not in real life. I mean, like, I'm talking about, like, I will ban you. Like, I'm sorry. It is like the guillotine for me. I'm looking for the reason to do it. I'm sorry, but I am. And the reason that I'm doing this is I just have not had the kind of life that any other human has had where I can take any kind of abuse whatsoever. I just didn't have that kind of life. I have been beaten the shit out of by humans almost all of my life. I've had my possessions stolen. I've had the system try to kill me. I've had a man try to kill me. I'm not your normal person. I just don't have the thick skin. I can't take it. So now I go and I say, off with their heads like Henry VIII, and I go bam, 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 and I try to warn them across the board. Don't ever disrespect me. Don't ever disrespect me even once, or you're gone. And I'm gonna say it really clearly. Don't ever disrespect me. Ever, or you're gone forever. Don't ever disrespect me forever, or you're gone forever. You know what I'm saying? I'm really, really, really not looking for new friends. That is not what I came here to do. I'm sorry. I realize that that's what you came here to do. A lot of people come to Twitch to look for friends. That's not why I came. Okay. Uh, Friends, I didn't come here to make friends. I came to make a personal history. I was saying, there we go. And I bring the walls up like Vietnam, like Nixon in Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? I bring the walls up like Nixon in Vietnam, and I stonewall everybody. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, yeah, oh god, yeah. And we're gonna demote Hop because we haven't seen him in a while. But when we do, he's re-promoted, and that's everything. Now we go back and we say blah blah. No, blah 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 blah. There. I think, oh no, blah 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 blah. Oh, the keybind got erased. Right, because Streamlabs crashes so much that getting the keybind saved is really hard. Because it crashes so much that getting a keybind saved is basically impossible. No, it's numpad 1. Oh, right. Shift. Numpad 1, numpad 2. No, I can't have that. I need control left, control right. Done. Then I come back and I say control right. Nope, control left. There we go. Control left, right. Okay, and we can go back and learn about Henry VIII. You know, I'm sorry, but like I came here to rule like a king. I didn't come here to get snide comments from the fucking peanut gallery. I did not do that. I'm sorry, but I think that's not what I came here for. And I realized that they're like, oh, I fucked up here, and I might have overspoke myself, or I made a mistake. And that's why I have 3 other platforms. You guys can go there and see me on YouTube. You know you can.
Video was made possible by Honey. Keep watching to find out how you can save money when you shop online.
And I'll hold church on Twitch until my follows are worthless. I'm sure eventually my follows on Twitch will be worthless when Twitch dies, and I'll convert to YouTube, and I'll talk to people there, and I'll ban people on YouTube at that point. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just not. I mean, I didn't come here. I'm looking for nice people. Not trolls. You know, I'll say that right in the thing too as well. Like in the moderation, I'll say I'm looking for nice people. I am looking for nice, quiet people, you know? I said it. I'm looking for nice, quiet people who just want to put me on in the background. That's all. Just nice, quiet people who want to put me on in the background. It's not hard. You know, and I'll be a lot. The more I have that, the less yelling I do, and the happier I am, the better I do when I'm gaming, and the happier person I am, and all this. You know, I just can't do it anymore. Can't really have humans being negative. Can't handle it. You know.
They're in. That's some nice merch. Get your brand new character pin, limited time face mask, and more. Link down below. Sigmund, I don't have much longer. Tell me, was I a good king? You were okay. Will I be remembered as the great warrior king who invaded France, revolutionized English healthcare?
You'll be remembered as the dude who chopped off his wife's heads.
Probably not, because of the wife killings.
The wife killings, yeah.
Sigmund, how did I get here? I still remember the good old days when I was a boy with a heart full of fire, and Mummy would teach me. Okay, Henry, this is a horse. Can you say horse? Divorce. What? No. Okay, let's try this one. Can you say loaf of bread? Loaf with her head. No, Henry, that's wrong. You know what? Last one. Okay. Can you say soap? Soap. Yes, that's it. I'm the supreme head of the church. Screw the Pope! You know what? You're my son and I love you, but you're freaking weird, man. The year is 1491. England has just come out of 3 decades of civil war, in which a bunch of Henrys, Edwards, and one Richard had a little ding-dong over which royal house should rule the realm. Finally, a Henry won, Henry VII, and he had a son. What should we name him? My royal lineage is full of Henrys. A fine name, a vigorous name, a tenacious name, a muscular name. How about Arthur? And so Arthur, Prince of Wales and next in line to the throne, was born. 5 years later, Prince Henry was born. But Nobody cares about him. He's not the heir, just a spare. The king wanted to make an alliance with Spain, so one day he said to his son,
I'm gonna make a joke on that page too. I'm gonna say, listen, if we're gonna F, I'm looking for a much older audience, guys. I'm sorry. Okay. A corruption portal spawned on top of me. Free ride home. See the barrier? Barrier curse is cute, isn't it? I might be sitting out in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter. Something will kill me. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, well, that was fun. Oh yeah, did I switch it to display? I did. And I will say, no, I want to say the F word, but I can't. People who want to put me on in the background. For years. Or make money or clout. I came to make a personal history. I'm not here to appease you or, like, you know, be a target of you or any of that stuff. That's not how I'm going to do now. Okay, and now we are going to drag over, okay, and get off of the, I'm sorry, get on the...
son Arthur, hey, baby, you see that lady baby? That's gonna be your wife. But father, I'm not even 3 years old yet. Listen, there's something you have to understand. You're my son. But more than that, you're a political bargaining tool. But you love me, right?
But more than that,
I love you as a political bargaining tool.
I love you as a political bargaining tool.
Pop, who the heck are you? I've written you a poem. Listen here, tiny man. Can't you see that I'm busy? But I'm your son. I have another son? As Arthur was in another palace, being prepped to become king, Henry lived with his mother and 2 sisters at Eltham, where he was being trained for a church career. And not just that, Henry learnt languages. He played sports. He learnt the recorder. What a nerd. Am I right? Wrong. Henry was the coolest kid around. So I told my Latin teacher he could kissius my buddius. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Great scholars and theologians from across Europe came to meet and teach the young Prince Henry, who by all accounts was a very enlightened, bright and charming young boy. Everybody loved Henry, and out of everything Henry was taught, more than anything, he came to adore and respect theology and Catholicism. One of Henry's tutors was English poet laureate John Skelton, who wrote a textbook for Henry that we still have today. In it, he wrote a number of important lessons for the young prince, such as, do not be mean, loathe gluttony, and do not violate widows. Important lessons for any 9-year-old boy. Around this time, Henry's older brother Arthur, now 15 years old, was married to Catherine of Aragon, sealing the union between England and Spain. And then he died. Oh, my alliance with Spain, my poor alliance with Spain. And your son, sire? Oh, yes, of course, my son. But mostly my alliance with Spain. Hey, Pop, who that?
Henry VIII is the perfect allegory, like the perfect metaphor for it. If you can't handle me being king in my own kingdom, nobody may say ill of the king in the king's own kingdom. If you even question the king or are sarcastic to the king, you are gone, off with your head.
The heck are you? Oh, yeah! And just like that, an unprepared Prince Henry was now the new heir to the throne. And how about that alliance with Spain? Well, the solution was simple. Hey, boy, see that full-grown woman over there? That's gonna be your wife. What, my brother's widow? Yes. You're a freaking weirdo, man. Now, in the Bible, there's a verse that says marrying your brother's widow, that's a big no-no. So the king needed to convince the Pope and get his special permission. Hey, can I please have my son marry his brother's widow? Sure, why not? And so it was. Henry's life was turned on its head as he was moved to the royal court, next in line to the throne. But tragedy struck when just a few months later, his mother, with whom he was very close, suddenly died in childbirth. The loss of his mother almost certainly had a big effect on the young boy. In his older years, King Henry VII went on a bit of a paranoid trip. As was normal for a king at the time, Henry VII had to quell a number of rebellions, and as he aged, he became ever more suspicious of the nobility around him. To keep them in check, he began levying huge, ruinous fines, left, right, and center. Dukes, bishops, barons, even his own
ban. Anybody can get banned. You're gonna get banned and fined. You know, ban. You know.
No one was safe from his tyranny.
Tyrant king, nobody's safe from my tyranny.
Nobility of England began to suffer. So when Henry VII
suffering
died just after Christmas 1508, there was a lot of celebration. Not only because the tyrannical Henry VII was gone, but because his replacement was the ever-popular, charming, and handsome 18-year-old King Henry VIII. Henry married Catherine of Aragon in June 1509. You may be wondering, if it's so weird to marry your brother's widow, and since he's now king, couldn't Henry just decide not to? Well, yes, he could, but by now, Henry wanted to. The thing about Henry that was unlike many kings of the time was he married for love, and he had grown quite fond of Catherine, very fond. Historians say their marriage was unusually good, and so he was coronated king. And what a king! Compared to his tyrannical father, he was an absolute joy. Having the blood of two royal houses, he was widely supported. He was really ridiculously good looking, and those famous calves could achieve world peace. Hey Henry, now that you're king, you know what that means. Costume party! Henry pranced around the palace playing dress up with his friends. He wrote plays. He sang songs. He danced. A true Renaissance man, very different from the gluttonous wife killer we think of today. Yep. In his early reign, people from near and far would come to ask favors of the generous king. Hey man, could I gain ownership of some land near Upton Snodsbury? Sure thing, pal. Hey, could I be an earl or a baron or a viscount or something? Anything you want, man. Could I get, just a really cool pig that has, freaking metal wings and 8 legs and shoots flippin' lasers and it can grow more pigs out of it for extra pigs? Say no more. Hey, guys, I was just checking up on the financial report and what the hell? We can't afford this. Henry's council that he inherited from his father weren't happy with all the money he was just throwing around, and they worked hard to curb the king's spending. Since they controlled the royal seals needed to get stuff done, at first they were largely able to control the young king. And for Henry, the most infuriating things of all was they wouldn't let him joust with his friends because it was too dangerous, nor would they let him do the thing he wanted most, to go on a great, glorious, and expensive conquest.
He was really mad at him because he was like, I want to go fuck over France again. And they're like, you can't fuck over France. Your father tried to fuck over France. His father tried to fuck over France. His father tried to fuck over France. None of you guys totally fucked over France, at least not for very long. France keeps on being France instead of England, and you got to stop trying to fuck over France. They're really just never going to be England. They don't speak the same language. They don't, And he's like, no, I want to attack France. My father attacked France. My father's father attacked France. And I will continue to attack France. They're the closest country to us. We will take their country. Attack France. And they're like, no, do not attack France.
England's historic enemy, France. Please, guys, I'll keep it...
Come on, man. Let us fuck France over. And they're like, no. You know how the church doesn't like it. The church doesn't like it when you kill a bunch of white, Protestant Catholics or whatever the fuck, right? They were not Protestant yet, or were they? Yeah, I think they were Protestant. The church doesn't like it when you kill fellow Protestant white people. So please don't go sack France again. You guys fail at it every single time, and France never becomes England.
Bit cheap. How? I'm glad you asked. I've got.
And they're like, also, you spent all the money. We can't go over there and we can't attack France. You always want to attack France. Where's that money going to come from?
promo code
Oh.
for the financial burden of war. Yes.
Yeah, for the
Honey
financial
is the
burden
free
of
browser
war.
extension that
Honey,
automatically
honey,
detects
for the
when
financial
you
burden
shop
of war. Yes.
Imagine you're on one of your favorite websites, not that one, and you want to reinvent yourself with some fresh new threads. Oh, hi, little dancing man. Got any sick promo codes for me? You do? Nice. You just saved $40 on your online shop. You rock star. Honey supports over 30,000 online stores and has already helped Oversimplified viewers save over $87,000. That's a lot of moolah. Not having Honey is literally saying no to free money like a crazy person. It's free, finds coupons with one click, and it's now part of the Venmo and PayPal family. So you know it's legit. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/oversimplified. That's joinhoney.com/oversimplified. And you'll also be supporting my channel. So thank you.
So thank you.
Where were we? Oh yeah. Sexy cabs, excessive spending, and war with France. Henry wanted
War with
He wanted to go down in
France.
history. If he didn't go to war in France, was he even the King of England? Man, I want to go to war so bad, but the council won't let me. Hey, maybe I can help with that. Whoa, it's Cardinal Wolsey, one of my best friends. Despite being an old-ass man, Cardinal Wolsey knew that if he helped King Henry, there'd likely be something in it for him. So what was his great, intricate plan to curb the council's power? You're the king, dum-dum. You can do whatever you want. What? Wolsey began writing bills that simply didn't require the seals, and thus Henry was back on top. For his efforts, Wolsey began to climb the ranks, and he became something of a yes man for King Henry, encouraging Henry to frolic and play while Wolsey took care of business. Hey, kid, you want to go on an adventure? Do I ever? The Pope was at war with France and he needed some help. He offered the young, impressionable King Henry 100 Parmesan cheeses, some wine, and a golden rose if he came to the Pope's aid, and Henry was all in. At this point in his life, he still respected the church and loved the Pope. And here was the chance for war he had been waiting for. He still didn't have an heir, a fairly big problem for a monarch at the time. But right now, the only kind of smashing he was interested in was smashing French guys in the face. And so off he went. The English already held the French city of Calais. From there, Henry made a glorious victory at the Battle of the Spurs. He took the French cities of Terouanne and Tournai. Word of his victory spread. This was it. Here was the glory he had been waiting for. Back home, his beautiful wife also led armies to victory in Scotland. And better yet, she was pregnant. Soon, Henry would have an heir. All of Henry's wildest dreams were coming true. Oh, he ran out of money. As the French prepared to invade Italy, all Henry could do was go home. Well, at least now I have an heir to cheer me up. Bring me my son. Henry, this is Mary. Mary? That's a funny name for a boy. Henry, it's a girl. This was Catherine's 5th pregnancy that had not resulted in a male heir. Happy Henry wasn't so happy anymore. You still haven't given me a male heir. Well, how do you know it's my problem? Maybe it's your problem, Henry. It couldn't be my problem because I've been boinking half your maidstaff and one of them gave me a sure. Yeah, you know what? Maybe it's my problem. I'll look into that. Cardinal Wolsey, now Henry's Lord Chancellor, knew his job depended on keeping Henry happy. And so he said, well, if you can't be the great warrior, then how about the great peacemaker? Not as cool, but okay. And so the Field of the Cloth of Gold, a glamorous peace summit between England and France, was held. The King of France, Francis I, was essentially the French version of King Henry, and the whole thing was basically one giant codpiece measuring contest. The two sides did agree to a peace treaty. However, it didn't last long. You see, there was a third major player in European politics at the time, an exquisite specimen of royal inbreeding, an heir to a huge inheritance, and a chin that could hit a home run. Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. He was Henry's wife's nephew. Henry had helped him out in the past to put down a Spanish rebellion, and now the two wanted to make an alliance, and so a marriage was arranged. Mary, I'd like to introduce you to your 22-year-old fully grown adult cousin, and now your future husband. Ew, he looks inbred. Mary! We're all inbred. With their new alliance, Charles and Henry agreed to relaunch a campaign against France. In 1522, the English landed and stormed as far south as Agincourt, but Charles didn't commit significant forces. Whoops, sorry man, not sure what happened. I'll join in next year. The next year, England swept northern France, almost taking Paris. But once again, where was Charles? Oh man, I'm so sorry. I promise, next year, I'll be there. The next year came, and a fed-up Henry decided he was gonna sit this one out. Just as Charles ravaged the French at the Battle of Pavia and captured the French king. Holy crap, dude. Yeah, I totally kicked France's butt. That's great. So, can I have the French throne like we agreed? No. What? And also, I don't want to marry your ugly daughter anymore. Ugly? Have you seen your chin? Mummy says it's a strong chin for a strong boy. As Henry's alliance with Charles fell apart, Henry knew his days as a warrior were over. This was a problem for Henry, but it was a bigger problem for his wife. Catherine of Aragon had two jobs. The first was to give Henry a male heir, but the second was to maintain an alliance with her relatives in Spain, including her nephew. She had failed, and Henry's sexy eyes began to wander. Home from all his wars, Henry ate up his daily 5,000 calories of meat as an infatuation began to grow for one of his wife's ladies-in-waiting, Anne Boleyn. Beautiful, intelligent, cultured. She was exactly Henry's type. Now, Henry had had dozens of mistresses, including Anne's sister, but Anne didn't want to just be Henry's side chick. She wanted to be his queen. Henry sent dozens of letters, thirsty love poems. In one, he proclaimed that he would like to kiss her pretty duckies. Henry's loins were on fire, but Anne kept him at just the right distance to drive him crazy and push him to find a way to get rid of his current wife. Wolsey, I want a divorce. And as the representative of the Pope here in England, I expect you to settle it quickly and quietly. I don't want this to turn into a Europe-wide scandal. You got it, Your Majesty.
Hey, Big Papa! My boy Henry says he wants to divorce his wife. Any chance?
To Henry's shock and horror, Wolsey deferred the case back to the Pope in Rome. To make matters worse, after all the wars in Europe, the Pope was currently under the thumb of Charles V. Now everybody knew what was going on, and Henry's divorce trial had become a pawn of greater European politics. For Wolsey, the decision was a disaster. His job was to keep Henry happy, and Henry was very unhappy. Nevertheless, the divorce trial began. Henry's case rested upon the Bible that his brother's widow would lead to childlessness, and Henry was certainly having a hard time getting a male heir. He argued that the Pope had got it wrong when he allowed Henry to marry his brother's widow, and that now divorce was the only solution. However, the Pope and Charles V acquired some interesting letters from an unknown source. He wants to kiss her pretty duckies? Man, this guy's loins are on fire. The Pope now knew the case for divorce may not actually be found in Henry's Bible, but in Henry's pants. After escaping Charles V, the Pope did send out one Cardinal Campeggio to oversee the trial. Campeggio was an old man racked with gout. It took him 6 painful months to travel from Rome to England, and when he finally got there, this kept happening. Hey, I need you to take a look at this evidence. I can't. My gout is acting up. Hey, are you ready to take my testimony? I can't. My gout is acting up. Hey, can you please make a decision?
I can't. I'm sick with gout.
Your gout is acting up? My gout is acting up. Anne Boleyn, with her Protestant views in support of the Reformation, suspected the Pope was just delaying. For 2 whole years, the trial dragged on, and in the end, the Pope simply said, no divorce for you. Henry, the king that had previously defended the Pope militarily from France and intellectually from the reformist ideas of Martin Luther, who had once respected the Pope above all, now found the Pope standing between him and fourth base. Your Majesty, what will you do? I'm the king, dum-dum. I can do whatever I want. What? For his failure, Henry removed Wolsey from the court, a decision that was likely influenced by Anne Boleyn, who disliked the cardinal. Having fallen from grace and with potential charges of treason over his head, Wolsey died of illness a year later. Then, Henry set about removing England from the influence of the Pope. Hey, if you do that, I'll excommunicate you. Who cares, man? Oh no, apathy. My weakness. Henry gathered theologians and scholars together to help him make his case against the Pope. Together, they argued to the people of England that the Pope's rule over the church was basically a takeover of what had once been a self-governing, national English church. And if that sounds familiar, some historians do believe this moment may have laid the foundations for English Euroscepticism. That's right, Brexit may have been influenced by Henry's explosive loins. By and large, the people gave Henry their support, and those that didn't were going to be in for a rough time. But for now, Henry assumed the role of supreme head of the English church, and his next divorce trial was a foregone conclusion. Catherine was Aragon.
Oh, well, so you bunch of old fuddy-duddies at the church say that I can't get a divorce so I can fuck my new wife, huh? Well, I don't like you, and I'm a Renaissance man, so, how about off with their heads, and I'll take the church, and I'll fucking divorce my wife, and I'm being the Pope now. I'll just marry myself to my wife, my next wife. And when I divorce her, I'll marry the next wife, and I'm a Renaissance man. I need to sleep with a lot of women.
Boleyn was in. Alright, I've upended the entire country to be with you, so you'd better give me a son, okay? Now, did you get my letter about the duckies? Having finally married the girl of his dreams, it was party time for him. And what a party. Life in the Tudor court was non-stop. Huge banquets, with each person eating on average 5,000 calories a day. And no vegetables. Those are for poor people. Rich people ate meat. And so you know what else is for rich people? Constipation. But don't let that stop the party.
Fatty
the toilets
meat.
are communal.
Fatty meat. Like crappy meat, like pig snouts and stuff like that. That's how they get gout. Rich people, the stuff rich people eat is so gross.
And Henry himself was the center of everything. He ate the best food. He had 1,200 pairs of shoes. He didn't even have to wipe his own bum bum. Life was great. Everyone, I give you your majesty.
Everybody thinks
King
that's the
Henry
life. I'm like,
VIII.
oh no.
But how did they pay for it all? Well, influenced by his fairly Protestant new wife. Since Henry had overturned the organization of the church, this is how they paid for it. Oh my goodness, how awful. Selling fake fragments of the cross? Vials of Jesus' blood that you got from a duck? Using religion in this way? This is terrible. I must confiscate all this money at once. Yes, how awful. I must take all of this away. Immediately. Monasteries across the nation were dissolved and their riches placed in the royal coffers. Obviously, many people weren't too happy about this, but Henry had a plan for that as well. Henry's descent into tyranny had begun, as any who rejected his new claim as supreme head of the English church found their heads on the chopping block. And so Henry partied. He danced, he sang, he ate, he jousted. Be meek, love gluttony, violate widows. In 1536, Henry fell from his horse in a jousting accident. Not for the first time, but certainly the heaviest fall he had taken yet. Some historians believe the brain damage caused by the incident may have violently accelerated Henry's descent into tyranny. Executions in England ramped up. During his reign, it's estimated 57 to 72,000 people were put to death. Rich or poor, big or small, no one was safe. And the most prominent victim of all was to be Henry's own wife. It had been 3 years since their marriage. Anne had been pregnant 4 times, yet she had only been able to produce one healthy child, a girl. What's more, it's possible she had been going around insulting Henry's manhood. Henry's eyes, once again, began to wander. His new top man, Thomas Cromwell, didn't want to end up like Cardinal Wolsey, and so he came up with a plan. There was a court musician who had been quite flirtatious in public with the Queen. Well, Thomas Cromwell and his boys got a forced confession out of him, saying that it didn't stop at innocent flirtation, and the charges came rolling in. Listen, Anne, we need to talk. Oh no, you're gonna divorce me, aren't you? Just like your last wife. Oh, no, come here. No, I'm not gonna divorce you. It's much worse than that. Anne was charged with adultery, perversion, even incest, and plotting to kill the king himself. The jury found her guilty, including her own uncle and ex-fiancé, both fearing the wrath of the king. And on May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn was Anne Boleyn. Literally the next day, Henry married one of Anne's ladies-in-waiting, Jane Seymour, his third wife. After Anne had smack-talked his manhood, and since he still had no male heir, Henry went on a campaign to ensure the public knew he was as virile as it gets. He had this famous portrait painted of the manliest man I've ever seen, and later, he would even have his physician make a declaration about his health. King Henry is a fine specimen of a man, and please don't make me say this. Say it. And every time I look at him, I wish I was a woman. The truth is, after his jousting accident, the king had badly injured his leg and was no longer very active, yet he was still eating his daily 5,000 calories. So by now, Henry was extremely unhealthy. For the remainder of his life, he would incur a number of illnesses, and his injured leg ulcers would ooze stinking pus. A fine specimen of a man indeed. On the church front, Henry's new and now pregnant wife was a devout Catholic, and she pleaded with the king to reinstate the monasteries. Henry was sick of wives meddling in his business, and he bluntly warned her to remember what happened to Anne Boleyn. Since splitting with the Pope, Henry had been hard at work determining the theology of his new Church of England. It kept many Catholic traditions, while on the other hand embracing some reformist ideas, such as requiring the use of a new Bible, not in Latin, but in English. The cover of Henry's new Bible depicted the people appearing to worship a giant King Henry. And in the corner, there's some people being put to death, just for good measure. For any who opposed Henry's ideas, whether Catholic or Protestant, for any who rebelled against him, it would be off with their heads. In October 1537, Henry finally got what he had been waiting for. His wife Jane gave birth to a healthy boy. However, the triumph soon turned to tragedy as Jane Seymour died days later from complications during the birth. Henry mourned Jane, the woman who had given him a son, for 2 years. Your Majesty, it's time to choose your next wife.
Thomas, not now. Can't you see I'm in mourning?
That one. The woman Thomas Cromwell had lined up for Henry's next marriage was the sister of a powerful German duke. But all Henry cared about was that she was pretty as pie, and Thomas Cromwell promised that indeed she was. However, when she arrived in England, Henry was less than pleased. Your Majesty, let me introduce you to your fourth wife, Anne of Cleves. What's that smell? I think it's your legs, sire. No, it's Anne of Cleves. She's ugly. This is treason. What? Off with his head. Henry found his new wife so repulsive that he never consummated the marriage and divorced her just 6 months later. And for bringing Henry an ugly, stinky woman, along with additional charges of plotting treason, Thomas Cromwell lost his head. The very same day of Cromwell's execution, Henry married his fifth wife, the famed beauty, Catherine Howard. She's believed to have only been 17 at the time. Henry was 49. And like Anne of Cleves, Catherine Howard didn't last long. You see, for some reason, she may not have been entirely satisfied with her 49-year-old fine specimen of a man. And it's possible she engaged in a number of extramarital affairs, including one with her cousin, Thomas Culpeper. When Henry found out, he was devastated. How could she do this to me? But, sire, don't you have hundreds of mistresses? Shut up, Barry. That's not the point. Your Majesty, you're crying. I'm not crying. It's just that sometimes, when I get sad, water comes out of my eyes. For her treason, Catherine Howard met the same fate as Anne Boleyn in 1542. We've had divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded. Look out, here comes survived. Henry married the daughter of a royal official, Catherine Parr, in 1543, and she appears to have been a good companion to Henry. She cared for the aging king, who by now was so heavy it took several men to winch him onto his horse. She acted as a mediator within the family and convinced the king to restore his two daughters to the line of succession. Their marriage did have one hiccup, however, when Catherine dared disagree with the king over the subject of theology. It's a miracle because when the priest says the words of institution, the bread turns into the body of Christ. Well, if you put the bread in a box for 3 months, is it a miracle that it turns moldy? Treason! You can't just call everything treason, Henry. The king called for her arrest, as serious charges were placed over her head.
What?
However, in the end, she told Henry that she had not been disagreeing with him, but simply learning from him. And so when the guards came to arrest her, the king told them to make like an Anne and cleave. Catherine Parr stayed with Henry right until the end. As he aged into his later years, in increasing pain and ill health, he grew ever more suspicious and moody. The once generous, promising young king was now feared by all around him. Sigmund, I don't have much longer. Hold me. Of course, sire. Do you have any final wishes? How about one last conquest in France? And so in 1544, Henry made for Calais. The pesky French had been supporting the Scottish in their ongoing wars with England, and they also owed Henry some money. So the extremely unhealthy king personally led a siege against the French city of Boulogne. The English dug tunnels under the castle, and on the 13th of September, the French surrendered. A glorious victory for Henry. In actuality, the whole misadventure nearly bankrupted England, and they ended up giving Boulogne back to the French a few years later. But shh, don't tell Henry. He's having his moment. Finally, in 1547, a 55-year-old Henry, lapsing in and out of consciousness, passed away. His son, Edward, succeeded him, but died just 5 years later. His daughter, Mary, briefly took the reins and steered the country back towards the Pope. But then his second daughter embraced reformist ideas and gradually transformed England into a Protestant country. Henry's desperation to marry Anne Boleyn and his resulting feud with the Pope had changed the course of English history and religion forever. Unfortunately, none of Henry's children had heirs, and when Elizabeth I died, Henry's lineage ended, with the House of Stuart replacing the House of Tudor. So then you might think, all that effort, a life filled with so much frustration, yet he never conquered France, he barely had a male heir, and his lineage died out. The egotistical man Henry grew sick and cruel, and then died. So why are we all so fascinated with King Henry VIII? Why not Henry II or IV? Well, without mentioning the many important things his reign did achieve, one of his biggest goals was to go down in history. And you can put a big green check beside that one, because everything he did and how he asserted his control and authority over everyone around him has come to be viewed as the epitome of the word king. And also because of the wife killings? Yeah, definitely the wife killings.
This channel is part of the History Hit Network.
Oh, oops.
Anne Boleyn, the wife of Henry VIII, awoke in the royal apartments at the Tower of London. Her ladies-in-waiting made their final preparations. Anne left her chambers at a little before 8 o'clock to face her destiny. Awaiting her at the end of this short journey was an expert executioner, famed for his skills with a razor-sharp blade. He'd just arrived from France, summoned by the king as a last-minute act of mercy for a wife for whom he'd risked everything, but whom he ultimately believed had betrayed him. The lives of Henry VIII.
It's a
and
pause to
Boleyn
eat something.
have
I'll be
been
right back.
caked in historical myth, romantic legend, cliches and half-truths.
Henceforth, my heart shall be dedicated to you alone.
Their turbulent relationship continues to spark fierce debate.
I'm entirely innocent of all these accusations.
I'll be retracing the footsteps of this extraordinary couple, piecing together the fragments of evidence that have survived to
Sweet.
discover what brought Henry and Anne together
Sounds awesome.
and what ultimately tore them apart.
We all know how this tragedy plays out, but how well do we know its leading characters? This is the story of Henry and Anne.
My journey begins in the Kent countryside, in search of Anne Boleyn. Her symbol was a falcon, used to extol her purity, her chastity, and her grace. There's a popular myth that Anne was from lowly origins, that she was a bit of an upstart, but that's far from the truth.
Beautiful.
This is Hever
Wow.
Castle, the seat of the Boleyns. It's Anne Boleyn's childhood home, where she spent many formative years. Here her parents, Thomas and Elizabeth, brought up the 3 children who made it to adulthood. The eldest was Mary, who fleetingly later would be a mistress to Henry VIII. Probably the youngest was George, who was a great companion to Anne, a bright young girl who would one day be queen.
Her father, Thomas Boleyn, was a member of the King's Council and Henry VIII's ambassador to France. Anne was well educated and from a wealthy, privileged family.
Wow.
The story goes that she was a free spirit, someone who was sparky, intelligent, and fun-loving. But this is based as much on rumour and speculation as any hard evidence.
It's so hard to get a sense of the real Anne Boleyn. We have a few letters, but we don't have any diaries. We don't really have any of the sort of things that we need to get a grasp on what she was really like. And yet, when you come to a place like this, where she actually lived, one has this incredible sense that the veil between past and present has grown thin, and only time and not space separates us from Anne.
Fortunately, a few telling pieces of evidence have survived, which give us a rare glimpse into her character. This is one of the few surviving possessions of Anne at Hever. It's a book of hours. It's a beautifully illustrated and illuminated manuscript book of prayers and devotions, and these things were immensely popular in Europe at the time. And what's really exciting about it is that Anne held it. There's something of a real thrill to be touching it. It was probably one of her most treasured possessions. What this reminds us is the importance of faith at this time. It literally determined people's hours. Religion marked out their days. We often have an idea of Anne in our heads that's of her as being ambitious and worldly and perhaps something of a vixen. And yet, this is one of her few belongings that we know and can identify. It reminds us that Anne is pious and religious. But what's even more thrilling about it is that Anne herself wrote in it.
History Hit is like Netflix, just for history fans. With exclusive history documentaries covering some of the most famous people and events in history, just for you. With familiar faces such as Dan Jones and Dr. Eleanor Yanega, we've got hundreds of documentaries covering the greatest figures and events of medieval history. We're committed to bringing history fans award-winning documentaries and podcasts that you cannot find anywhere else. Sign up now for a free trial, and Chronicle fans get 50% off their first 3 months. Just be sure to use the code CHRONICLE at checkout.
It's an inscription in French, and it says, Le temps viendra, je Anne Boleyn. The time will come, I Anne Boleyn.
The time will come, I, Anne Boleyn.
Now, we don't know when she wrote this. We don't know exactly what she meant by it, but it seems immensely prophetic and powerful. It's on a page where there's a picture of Christ being raised above the earth, and then there are these little heads at the bottom that look like people coming up out of the grave. So perhaps this refers to the Day of Judgment. Many people in the 16th century thought that they were living in the end times, the last days before the second coming of Christ.
I mean, we basically
but perhaps
were.
there's a more earthly explanation.
Yeah.
I wonder if Anne thought that she was destined for greatness.
All our doings being ordered by thy God.
Even if she was ambitious, Anne could never have imagined that her destiny would lie with the most powerful man in the land, a married man,
Amen.
the king.
We all think we know Henry VIII, but actually what we conjure up is Henry in the last decade of his life when he's obese and savage and ruthless and cruel. But he wasn't always like that. In fact,
Nope.
when he first came to the throne,
Not at
in
all.
the first 20 or so years of his reign, he was noted, first of all, for being really good looking.
Yup.
He had auburn hair. He was very tall. He was 6'2" when the average height
I'm
was
6'4".
5'7.5". And he was so good at sport that everyone commented on it. He surpassed all the archers of his guard. He was a fine jouster, a capital horseman. To see him play tennis, one Venetian ambassador commented, was the prettiest thing in the world. That Venetian ambassador also said, perhaps he had a crush, that he had a round face so very beautiful that it would become a pretty woman.
I thought we were playing. Where you going?
But the thing that was most surprising to me, coming across this young Henry, was that he was also well-loved. He was considered to be kind. The ambassador said that he was affable and gracious, a man who harmed no one. Erasmus said that he was a man of gentle friendship and gentle in debate. He acts more like a companion than a king. Henry was evidently very charismatic. When he spoke to you, it was like the sun was shining.
As a king and a man, he seemed to have few flaws. But Henry would become tormented by his failure to perform the most basic, yet most important task of any monarch. It would put him on a collision course with Anne, and together they would change England forever. Henry VIII, yet most important task of any monarch. It would put him on a collision course with Anne, and together they would change England forever. Henry VIII wasn't born to be king. He'd come to the throne after the death of his father Henry VII, and only because his older brother Arthur had died suddenly at the age of just 15. Within months of becoming king, Henry married his brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon. They were crowned together. But with marriage came a huge pressure. Now he needed to produce an heir to secure the dynasty for the next generation. And not just one, he needed an heir and a spare, as his brother's death had indicated.
Hummus, pepperoni, and provolone cheese.
20 years.
A few slices of pepperoni and a few bits of cheese.
But they were beset by a devastating series of miscarriages and stillbirths. When a son, Henry, was born, he died 52 days later. Mary would be the only child to survive. Most people at the time saw little value in a female heir, as she would likely end up marrying a European prince, allowing England to be dominated by a foreign power. And France and Spain were a constant threat throughout Henry's reign. So siring a legitimate heir became Henry's overriding obsession. It was an obsession that would manifest itself in Henry's relationship with God, by whom he believed he had been anointed king. This lack of a surviving legitimate male heir suggested to Henry VIII that he was being punished by God. And he suspected the reason was that he had married his brother's widow. And scriptures backed him up in this. In Leviticus it says, in chapter 18, verse 16, "You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. It is your brother's nakedness." And chapter 20, verse 21 says, "If a man takes his brother's wife, it is impurity. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless." Henry's theological experts assured him that childless, in this instance, actually meant no sons. While England waited for an heir to the throne, the teenage Anne had crossed the Channel and was embracing all that Europe had to offer. After some time in the Netherlands, her father found her a role in the French court, which would become a defining influence in her life.
Little is known of Anne's 9 years on the continent, and yet much is always made of it. It certainly was a formative period of her life. It was the period when she was educated. And people in the 16th century and today have speculated in a kind of prurient, nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of way that at the French court particularly, she learned the art of love.
I want to see for myself how Anne's time in France shaped her character.
Ooh, axe.
I'm traveling to the Chateau de Blois, one of the palaces where the French king, Francis I, held his court. I can only imagine what the young Anne must have felt when she first arrived here.
I've never been here before, and it's really exciting.
Anne would be a lady-in-waiting to the cultured and pious French queen, Claude.
Didn't do things by halves, did they? Look at this place. My word.
It was the most fashionable court in Europe, reflected in its spectacular architecture.
This is an extraordinary sort of Renaissance style. You've got the real classical statues up the top here, and all these columns, and this amazing spiral staircase. It's so incredibly beautiful, this staircase. It would have been such an extraordinary time for Anne when she was here, because she was here with Claude of France, who herself was a real patron of the arts. Francis I, her husband, was so much a fan of the Renaissance that he invited Leonardo da Vinci to France, and he was installed just down the road. There's every chance that Anne might have met him. So basically, Anne would have been surrounded by this world of intellectual endeavour and artistic endeavour. It must have been such an exciting place to be. I'm out of breath now.
Anne came of age in France. One observer later wrote that no one would ever have taken her to be English by her manners, but a native-born French woman.
What might Anne have learnt at this court?
The first thing, of course, is French, because French was a very important language at that time. It was something like the English today in the northern court of Europe. We just know that she must have been at some very important events, such as when the English ambassadors came to France in 1518, or at the Field of the Cloth of Gold, because she must there have played an important role as an interpreter between the English and the French. She received a European education, and she was really different from the young ladies who just stayed in England.
Anne also saw firsthand what was required to fulfill the essential role of a queen. Her mistress Claude gave birth to 7 children in 8 years, including 3 sons, something Henry and Catherine could only dream of. Claude was also extremely pious, so it's unlikely that her court was a hotbed of promiscuity.
Cedric, one of the things that's often said about Anne's time in France, with probably little evidence from what you've said so far, is that there's kind of this idea that somehow she's learned all about sex while she's been at the court. Do you think this is at all plausible?
Yeah, my opinion would be that it's not true, but it may be true. We don't know. We have no evidence. I don't think there was a clear difference at that time between the court of Francis I and the court of Henry VIII.
Our first surviving letter from Anne was written to her father and shows her aspirations to be accepted in the English court.
Sir, I understand by your letter that you wish that I shall be of all virtuous repute when I come to court. And you inform me that the Queen will take the trouble to converse with me, which rejoices me greatly. To think of talking with a person so wise and virtuous. Written at 5 o'clock by your very humble and obedient daughter, Anne de Boulogne.
We tend to think about Anne Boleyn in black and white terms. So she's either a sexual predator or she's sexually chaste. She's either pious or she's worldly. She's either innocent or sophisticated. And yet, actually, what I've learned here is that her French education, her time at the French court, was such that it prepared her to be a much more complex character than that.
Her 9 years on the continent transformed her from a teenage girl into an extremely desirable woman.
The Anne that emerges back in England is one who's been shaped by many different influences, who is both pious and worldly, who's both sophisticated and something of an innocent. She's one who can play musical instruments, who can sing, who can dance, who can speak French, who is sophisticated and witty, who's been exposed to a world of cosmopolitan glamour. And she's such an attractive prospect because, precisely because, she is so complex.
The time will come. I, Anne Boleyn.
In her early 20s, Anne arrived back in London. Henry held court in palaces all over the capital, and I've come to one of the few that has survived, Hampton Court.
I love this place. I'm always amazed when I come here. Imagine what it must have been like for Anne when she came to court. She was joining Catherine of Aragon's court. She was a lady in waiting. And Catherine would have had a number of women serving her. And of course, this meant really being a companion to Catherine, reading with her, sewing with her, being by her side, as well as looking after her needs. There would have been perhaps 1,200 people at the court at its most, about 200 of whom were women, Catherine of Aragon's women. And of course, Catherine's court was part of the wider court, Henry's court, which was probably at most 1,000 men.
A Tudor court was a heady mix of politics and theatre.
A court ought to be formal, ought to be serious, ought to be religious. But it also ought to be, as well as all that, it ought to be a place where people are having fun. Parties are going on, where people are enjoying themselves. You don't want a court which is too serious. Henry's court is awash with desire and love and sex. It's full of young people with lots of time on their hands and not much to do. In Henry's court, when people talk about love, they're often actually talking about promotion. They're often actually talking about politics. Courtly love is a game. Henry has lots of roles, but one of them is the leading courtly lover. Now, in order for him to play that role, he has to have the leading courtly woman as his object of desire, as the person he performs to.
Competition for this role was intense, and maybe Anne aspired to be one of the leading players.
Henry did have mistresses, not nearly as many as the French king, but it was considered to be a normal part of court life, especially when Catherine was pregnant, because it was considered unlucky in Tudor times to have sex during pregnancy. So in 1519, for example, one of the most beautiful women at the court, Elizabeth Blount, had given birth to an illegitimate son, Henry Fitzroy. His surname means son of the king. And of course, this indicated to Henry that if Catherine wasn't bearing him sons, it wasn't his fault. When Anne came to court in 1522, Henry had another mistress, someone Anne knew rather well. Henry went out to joust one day, bearing the motto, Elle mon cœur à Navarra, she has wounded my heart, which spoke of this mistress, and the she in question was Mary, Anne's elder sister. We don't know that much about Mary. We know that she was beautiful, giddy, high-spirited. She enjoyed the trappings of court life, as Anne would later do. And we know even less about her relationship with Henry, except that it was short-lived.
The risk of fleeting royal affection surely served as a warning to Anne over the coming years. It's one of the most famous love stories in history, and yet we know very little about how Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn's romance began. It's likely that Henry first noticed Anne during courtly entertainments. What is more is that their stories came together in early 1526, 4 years after Anne's arrival at court. We know this because Henry was soon writing love letters and giving her romantic gifts. One of these supposed presents is housed in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London.
One of the first gifts that Henry is said to have given Anne is this beautiful miniature gold whistle pendant. It's covered with foliage and it's really rather tiny. And as well as being a whistle, it also has within it a scoop for one's earwax and a pick for one's teeth, so it's all about personal hygiene. It is the sort of thing that Henry VIII might have worn on his clothing in a sort of court mask or festivity that would then be given away as a present. But above all, it tells us a message. And the message is clear. Henry is saying, if you whistle, I will come.
It might have been just another gift from a king to a courtly love mistress, but it soon became clear from Henry's own hand that this was something far deeper.
I and my heart put ourselves in your hands, begging you to recommend us to your good grace, and not let absence lessen your affection.
When historians study Henry and Anne, much is made of the dark political forces manoeuvring behind the scenes to unite or to separate this couple. And what is lost amongst these affairs of state is the fact that this was a very real and very passionate love affair between two individuals. These are copies of Henry VIII's letters to Anne. The originals, the manuscripts, are in the Vatican Library. They probably ended up there as part of the evidence against Henry's divorce from Catherine of Aragon. And these are quite extraordinary because they show to us these intimate moments, these private thoughts. This letter, for example, starts, "My own sweetheart, this shall be to advertise you of the great loneliness that I find since your departing. For I assure you,
Think of time longer since your departing now last than I was wont to do a whole fortnight. I think your kindness
and my fervency of love caused it. For otherwise I would not have thought it possible that for so little a while it should have affected him so much." And he concludes,
Darling, wishing myself especially of an evening in my sweetheart's arms, whose pretty duckies I trust shortly to kiss.
Ducks is the Tudor slang for breasts. And he says,
written by
with
the hand of he who was, is, and shall be yours by his will. Henry Rex.
Oh shit, I didn't know.
Sentiments are reiterated elsewhere. So here
It's actually
it
super
says,
good.
For example, I would that you were in mine arms or I in yours, for I think it long since I kissed you.
Yeah.
To cause you yet oftener to remember me, I send you, by the bearer of this, a buck killed late last night by my own hand, hoping that when you eat of it, you will think of the hunter.
But perhaps the sweetest one of all is this one, which is written in French, and he promises Anne that in the future his heart would belong to her alone, would be dedicated to her alone, and that he desired that his body could be also. And signs off again in the sweetest possible way. H and R, his initials. Autre ne cherche is not looking for any other. And then draws a love heart and puts AB in the middle. So he's like a schoolboy doodling on his exercise book. Henry loves Anne.
I beg also, if at any time before this I have in any way offended you, that you would give me the same absolution that you ask, assuring you that henceforth my heart shall be dedicated to you alone. person was certain. God can do it if he pleases. So I pray every day to that end, hoping that my prayers will be heard.
We don't know exactly when these letters were written, and sadly we don't have Anne's responses. But it's clear that Henry's love for her was becoming ever stronger.
We know that Anne received many of these letters at Hever Castle. She was there in the late 1520s when she was suffering from sweating sickness and separated from Henry. We just don't know what she wrote back.
Well, my mistress, it has not pleased you to keep the promise you made when I was last with you. That is to say, to hear good news of you and to have an answer to my last letter.
Sweating sickness was a potentially lethal disease which had spread through Tudor England, forcing Anne to stay away from the king.
I think because we don't have her responses, a lot has been written to fill in that gap. And there's been an assumption that somehow she was playing hard to get and manipulating him, that he loved her and she was just playing a game. But in practice, I think ultimately both of them wanted to do what was right. And above all, Henry, of course, wanted to have that legitimate heir. He could only do that if Anne became his wife. There was no point her becoming pregnant beforehand. In fact, it would have been detrimental to his cause. I think both of them decided to hold out and to wait. I don't think we should read into the absence of letters from Anne some sense that she was the one holding all the cards and Henry was just desperate to have her. I think the two of them were passionately in love, but wanted to do this correctly, wanted to be right.
But the stakes were high.
Thomas More said, "Politics be king's games," and for the most part played on scaffolds, and love at the Tudor court was a political affair. Anne was risking everything.
And it was tough for Henry too. He now had to think the unthinkable, to divorce Catherine and marry Anne.
The time will come. I, Anne Boleyn.
No king had ever divorced a queen. The issue would become known as the king's great matter. A play later performed at court, no doubt with Henry's approval, made his feelings about Catherine and Anne clear.
Busy at a piece of work that needs must be done. Even now is making a new moon. He says your old...
It was called The Play of the Weather and was packed with political rhetoric, talking of Jupiter needing a new, tighter moon to replace his old, deep moon.
New moon, I durst lay my gown, except a few drops at her going down. You get so...
Mocking and embarrassing Catherine, the play was a cruel statement of Henry's intent to discard a loyal wife whose only crime had been her failure to provide a male heir.
Softly on the ground. Though they fell on a sponge, they would give no sound. This new moon shall make a thing spring more in this while than our old moon shall, while a mile go a mile.
But Henry would dramatically underestimate how difficult it would be to end this 20-year marriage legally. England was a Roman Catholic country, and on religious matters, even the king came under the authority of the Pope, and he wasn't going to play ball. I've come to see a document that testifies to the lengths that Henry would go to get Rome's permission.
This document dates from 1529, and it was produced at a court that had been convened in order to examine Henry VIII's marriage to Catherine of Aragon and the possibility of an annulment. This document has lots to tell us. First of all, saying that Henry's, king of France and Ireland and all the other things that he claims to be. And what's really interesting about it is that Henry has gathered all the officials of the church. So it mentions Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, we've got the Archbishop of Canterbury, we've got the bishops of Ely and London and Bath and Exeter. It says that Henry feels that this matter of his marriage to Catherine has caused him a real rupture in his tranquility of his mind and his body. In other words, being married to his brother's widow in this sham marriage, as he's claiming it to be, has caused such a burden on his soul that his conscience is severely troubled. So this is the first time we really have this recognition that something has to change. And this document also demonstrates to us the lengths to which he will go to get what he wants. Among these beautiful seals, on the third from the left, we have one that has the signature up here of John Fisher, Bishop of Rochester.
But not everything is quite as it seems.
Rochester was a really important figure in Henry VIII's life, and yet his signature here is not genuine. He later claimed that it was a forgery, that he'd never signed this document, and that he was entirely opposed to this matter of the divorce. In the end, Fisher would pay the ultimate price for his hostility to Henry and Anne, and for the lengths to which Henry would go in order to be with her. Fisher ended up, as so many others in Henry VIII's reign, on the scaffold.
Now Henry and Anne's future together seemed to rest on the judgment of the Pope. Henry VIII was used to getting his own way. Blocked by the Pope from ending his marriage to Catherine so that he could marry Anne, he needed to find another solution. And help came from a source close to the king, Anne herself.
I want to show you another book. This is William Tyndale's The Obedience of a Christian Man from 1528. It was a rather battered edition, but what it has to say is really important. Tyndale was a Protestant, and he argues in this book that the supreme authority is Scripture, over and above the false authority of the Pope. He also adds that it's shameful for princes to be under the authority of the Pope. In other words, that kings are the highest authority in the land.
It says the king is judge over all, and over him there is no judge.
What's really interesting is that Anne almost certainly gave a copy of this book to Henry. And Henry, on reading it, said, "This is the book for me and all kings to read." He evidently rather liked it.
And it gave Henry a solution to his dilemma. If he were the supreme religious authority, there was no need to get permission from the Pope for his divorce.
And this idea that actually he was first under God played to his egotism. It was something he'd secretly suspected all along. And this is another example of the way in which this love affair was having a profound impact. This love affair was so important that it would end up changing the very faith of England.
Henry broke ties with Rome, removing the Catholic Church's influence over the country. And he set about creating a new Church of England over which he would be the supreme head. It was an incredibly brave move that risked taking England to
What's up, number two?
Roman Catholic neighbours in Europe. Sir Henry desperately needed a powerful ally. In December 1532, he crossed the Channel with Anne to seek approval for their marriage from the French king. And they got it. They had waited each other for 7 long and difficult years. Now they
Aw.
have cleared a pathway to marriage. And all the evidence suggests that by the time they left Calais and returned to Dover, Henry and Anne...
He must
were
have really hated the church in a way. I think he believed in love and the church didn't. Not at that time anyways. I think the church believes in love now, but I don't think they did at that time.
I've always believed that Henry and Anne were passionately in love. And if anyone should doubt their feelings for each other, there's a remarkable 500-year-old book. I don't suppose it was ever meant to be seen by anyone except Henry and Anne.
I'm really excited about this.
In all my years of studying this couple, this is the first time I've had a chance to see the real thing.
Go ahead.
So it's a stunning, exquisite turn of the 15th century, 16th century, probably Flemish illuminated book of hours, but really evocative and very special because it provides us with a really intimate glimpse into Henry and Anne's relationship. It contains 2 remarkable written entries in the hand of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn.
That's amazing.
And this is Henry's here, written in his own hand. Beneath, very importantly, an illumination of the flayed Christ, sometimes referred to as Man of Sorrows or Ecce Homo. I think Henry is trying to portray himself by association as the lovesick king suffering, you know, in his heart.
If you remember me in your prayers as strongly as I adore you, I shall hardly be forgotten, for I am yours forever.
If you remember my love in your prayers as strongly as I adore you, then I shall scarcely be forgotten. Your Henry, Rex forever.
Well,
would you like to see what Anne wrote?
Gosh, yes, yes.
I think she chose the page very carefully. We can see here an image of the Annunciation, so Virgin Mary is being told by the angel that she's going to have a son, and I think that this is what Anne is telling Henry.
Yes.
That she is willing to provide him with the son and heir that he so desperately wanted. And then at the foot of the page we can see she writes to Henry a couplet.
By daily proof we shall me find, to be to you both loving and kind. By daily proof you shall me find, to be unto you both loving and kind. Wow.
These words that Henry and Anne wrote to each other remind me of wedding vows. Henry declaring that he would be hers forever, and Anne promising to give the king the son and heir he desperately wanted. Now they set about making their union official. Henry brought Anne to one of his favourite palaces, the palace at Whitehall.
At the time, it was the largest palace in Europe, bigger even than the Vatican. And this map from 1680 shows something of its large extent. It shows that it had a tilt yard, tennis courts, gardens, a great hall, and many, many apartments. It would have been a glorious place for Henry and Anne to celebrate being together.
Whitehall Palace was burnt to the ground in 1689. Virtually all Henry's Tudor buildings were destroyed, and what little is still left is now only seen by politicians and civil servants working in the cabinet office.
And this is it. Almost all that remains of that once mighty palace.
It's a crying shame, because so much of this story would have been played out here at Whitehall, including the pinnacle of Henry and Anne's romance, their marriage.
Shit, he was a bear. I was like, is it a rock or a bear? It was a bear.
Henry and Anne were officially married.
Wait.
It was a pretty private affair. There weren't many people there, and so we have few witness accounts of exactly what took place. But what we do know is that the couple would have been overjoyed.
Oh, you got 2K.
And surely, this time, it would be a boy.
They had defied a pope and redefined a kingdom. It seemed that love had conquered all. Love had brought Henry and Anne together.
Of body small, of power regal, no manner fault is in this falcon white.
But what would tear them apart?
Oh Lord God, have mercy on us.
When Anne became queen, she was already pregnant. Anne had held out the promise that she would give Henry the son and heir that he needed to secure the Tudor dynasty. But Anne failed to fulfill that promise. She gave birth to a girl, Elizabeth. It was a massive disappointment. Catherine of Aragon, a loyal wife and queen for over 20 years, had already been unceremoniously discarded for being unable to deliver a son. Henry had seen this failure as a stain on his image, and image was everything in the world of the Tudors. Henry needed to be seen as a king who could continue his dynasty. This is a cartoon that was prepared by Hans Holbein, a sketch. And it is such an insight into how Henry wanted to be seen. Because for a start, he's actually taller than he was in real life. We've compared his armor with this picture, and we found that actually he's been stretched. But the key message of this picture is told by the shapes of Henry's body. So it forms two triangles. We've got the broad shoulders that form a triangle tapering to the waist, and the splayed feet that taper also up to focus the gaze on his bulging codpiece, which his hands frame and which there's several bows above. Because this picture is all about masculinity and virility and fertility and potency. It's no wonder that we think of Henry as this man of lusts, when in actual fact he had trouble siring an heir, because this picture tells us what to think. That's why there are so many copies of this picture, because if you were a courtier who had any nous at all, you'd get yourself a copy of this picture to show that you were on message. Henry and Anne's marriage came under intense pressure from the very beginning. England's future depended on their ability to reproduce. A song composed for Anne's coronation made the new queen's duties explicit. It was called the White Falcon, the falcon being Anne's heraldic badge and a symbol of grace, purity, and fertility.
This white falcon, this bird shineth so bright. Of all that are no bird compare, may with this falcon white.
small, of power regal she is, and sharp of sight.
In chastity excelleth she, most like an angel bright.
That she may bring fruit according for such a falcon white.
Herself repose upon the rose, now may this falcon white.
The symbolism is clear. As King and Queen, Henry and Anne were expected to produce a male heir. Under such pressure, Anne's increasing desperation began to show. Less than a year after Elizabeth's birth, rumours circulated that the Queen was once again of a goodly belly. But mysteriously, there's no record of either a miscarriage or indeed a birth.
Well, it suggests to me that maybe it was a case of pseudocyesis or phantom pregnancy, which happened particularly in the 16th century before the age of scans or pregnancy tests, when women who desperately wanted to be pregnant would have all the symptoms of pregnancy, but there was no baby. Which expresses just how much Anne was desperate to give Henry what he wanted.
Henry's obsession wasn't the only burden on their marriage. There were still many Roman Catholics who refused to accept Anne as their queen. This conflict would lead to bloodshed. Henry VIII had paid a heavy price to marry Anne Boleyn. In removing the Pope's authority over England, he had made Catholic enemies at home and abroad. To protect his own position, the king needed the loyalty of his subjects, and he was prepared to create new laws and use force to get it.
In 1534, Henry's government passed the Act of Supremacy, which said that Henry was and always had been supreme head of the Church of England. They just noticed it recently. And following on the heels of that was the Act of Succession. This said that Anne was his lawful queen, and any children they had would be the true heirs to the throne. And all English subjects were required to swear that this was the case. And some people found this very hard to swallow.
Those that refused to swear the oath were treated as traitors. This is Charterhouse in central London. In the 16th century, it was a flourishing monastery, and at its head was Prior John Houghton. He would pay the ultimate price for defying Henry.
The ultimate price.
Houghton and many of his monks refused to swear that oath of succession. And so in April 1535, 10 of them were taken to Newgate prison. And within fewer than 3 weeks, they were tried, convicted, and executed for treason. And we have an astonishing account of their execution. A foreign report on the gruesome event was graphic. What it said was this: they were dragged to the place of execution in their habits, to the great grief of the people. They were hanged, cut down before they were dead, opened, and their bow and hearts burned. Their heads were then cut off, and their bodies quartered. And another report adds the shocking detail that the executioner caused them to be ripped up in each other's presence, their arms torn off, their hearts cut out, and rubbed upon their mouths and faces. And the barbarity of this act was blamed directly on the King of England himself.
Far from easing the pressure on Henry and Anne's marriage, the deaths of these dissenters only amplified it. They needed a son more than ever to justify their actions. But even though their relationship was under great strain, they certainly weren't showing it. I've come to a castle in Gloucestershire. It's a place that reminds us that for more than 2 years, they were happily married and still in love. The royal couple came here for 10 days in the summer of 1535, just a few months after the bloodshed at Charterhouse. Today, it's an upmarket hotel.
Hello. Thank you. My name's Lipscomb.
I've got the keys to a unique hotel room. Now, it's pretty unusual to stay in any room that a king and queen have slept in, but one that Henry and Anne have stayed in is a rare and thrilling experience. Of course, it's hard enough to know what goes on behind closed doors in modern relationships, let alone at a distance of almost 500 years. But what we do know is what other people said about Henry and Anne. And what they said is that Henry and Anne were married together. In fact, Henry and Anne were described as being married together more than Henry and his other wives, including throughout the summer and autumn of 1535, when they were staying here. But the other thing we know about their relationship is that it was a relationship of sunshine and storms. They quarreled and they made up. They had fights and then they had ardent reunions. Henry and Anne were now 2.5 years into their marriage, and as 1535 drew to a close, all seemed well in their world.
"1536 should have been a great year for Henry and Anne. The king was now supreme head of the Church of England, and any son that they had would be the legitimate heir to the throne. And things were looking optimistic on that front, because Anne was pregnant again.
The couple's good fortune continued with the first major event of that year. On the 7th of January 1536, Catherine of Aragon, Henry's first wife, had died after a short illness. In the eyes of Rome and Catholic Europe, Catherine was still the legitimate Queen of England. Her nephew was the Spanish king, Charles V, a serious threat to Henry's reign. On the day his ex-wife died, Henry was busy partying at court. No one could now dispute his marriage to Anne.
The true victim in this story, it's Catherine of Aragon. She gave more than 20 years of her life to this man, who would ultimately discard and humiliate her.
Her only crime was her failure to give Henry a healthy son. For that, she was exiled from court, and her daughter Mary declared a bastard. As a final humiliation, Catherine was denied a state funeral at St. Paul's or Westminster Abbey. Instead, she was buried here, at Peterborough Cathedral. I find it quite moving and sad to be here by Catherine's grave. Catholics viewed Catherine as a martyr, and her story is so tragic that people still want to mark her life. Look at all this. People have brought flowers and posies, and the pomegranate, her symbol, to remember her by. So Catherine remains an inspiration. Henry and Anne treated her with utter contempt. So self-absorbed were they. Ultimately, she would be just another victim of their destructive love affair. Henry had weathered a political and religious storm over his divorce from Catherine. Now Anne was expecting a child that would surely be a son. Henry appeared to have come through the other side with pride and honour intact. But I believe it was Henry's overwhelming desire to maintain honour that would ultimately destroy the marriage for which he'd fought so hard. Just 17 days after Catherine's death, Henry and Anne's relationship suffered a major blow.
Like everyone else in the 16th century, Henry VIII was obsessed with honour. And honour was associated with masculinity, with upholding patriarchy, with controlling one's household and maintaining one's good name.
Masculinity was an essential part of kingship. It was vital that Henry excelled over all. He was a champion on the tilt yard, an expert jouster. But his youth and athleticism were fading. And his love for dangerous sports would now prove life-threatening. Henry fell from his horse whilst jousting. He suffered a major blow to the head. The king was reported to be unconscious for over 2 hours. Such a severe head injury could be partly responsible for the marked change in Henry's personality. He became an increasingly brutal and cruel king.
We understand that the young Henry was very different from Henry in the later years of his life, and there are a couple of ideas about why that could be and how his brain might have been involved. If he underwent damage to the frontal lobe of the brain, it's this part here, just behind the forehead, and if he hit the ground very hard, then the front part of the brain could bash against the skull and cause damage to this area. And the reason why that's important is that the frontal lobe, here, the biggest lobe of our brain, is the area responsible for our personalities and our behaviour. It processes our experiences and makes us the people that we are. And we know that people who have damage to the frontal lobe, it may just exacerbate character traits that they already have. So if they're slightly grumpy, they may, after their injury, be very grumpy. Often people say it's like a completely different person, and so their characteristics change completely. So it's possible that that's what happened to Henry.
We also know that the impact of his fall opened up an old ulcer in Henry's left leg, which would never heal.
We know that actually Henry's physicians did try to drain his ulcers, and they used hot irons, almost like a hot poker, that they pushed into his ulcer with no anaesthetic. And that can't have done very much for his temper.
And worse was to come. Henry's jousting accident would be blamed for the next disaster to strike at the heart of Henry and Anne's marriage. Less than a week after Henry's near-fatal fall, Anne miscarried. She blamed her miscarriage on her shock at hearing the news of the king's fall. The fetus was 3.5 months old enough for them to be able to tell that it would have been a boy. Although they loved each other, the success of Henry and Anne's marriage had always depended on having a son. The Spanish ambassador Eustace Chapuis wrote that Anne had miscarried of her saviour. He he believed that the Queen had sealed her fate.
Well, we know that Henry was distraught. Reports said that he showed great distress and great disappointment and sorrow at the loss of his child. He was reported to have said, "I see that God will not give me male children."
Henry had seen his failure to sire a son with his previous wife, Catherine, as a sign that God disapproved of his first marriage. Was the miscarriage a sign that Anne didn't have God's backing either? Following Anne Boleyn's miscarriage, rumours circulated in court that Henry VIII had lost interest in his wife. Anne was never a popular queen, and without a son, she was exposed to those at court who would rejoice at her downfall. And they would have been delighted to hear gossip that Henry was seeing another woman. Our evidence comes from the Spanish ambassador Eustace Chapuis, a wily character and a staunch Roman Catholic who never disguised his hatred for Anne, the woman whom he called the concubine.
Ubaldino writes that he has heard in France that Anna Boleyn had in some way or other incurred the royal displeasure, and that she is in disgrace with the king, who is paying his court with another lady, and that the people are uttering words of much indignation against them.
The other lady that Chapuis refers to is Jane Seymour. Jane was a lady in waiting to the Queen, just as Anne had once been to Catherine. The Spanish ambassador wrote that Henry had sent a letter to Jane, accompanied by a purse full of sovereigns. It was possibly a summons to his bedroom.
Jane didn't open the letter and instead sent back the purse and the letter saying that she was the daughter of good and honourable parents, and that if the king wanted to make her a present of money, perhaps he'd do so at the time that God decided to give her an advantageous marriage. It does look a little like Jane is playing hard to get. Perhaps because she hoped that the advantageous marriage would be with Henry himself.
But I don't believe Henry was planning to marry Jane. It was normal practice for kings at this time to have mistresses, and there's absolutely no evidence that Henry was thinking of abandoning Anne, or indeed that he'd even fallen out of love with her. In fact, Henry was still increasing pressure on the Spanish king, Charles V, to recognize Anne as his queen. But then fate intervened, delivering a blow so powerful that it would tear Henry and Anne's relationship apart. Scandalous rumours began to spread through the court that the Queen had been having sexual relations with other men, some close to the king. Why these allegations surfaced and who was behind them is still fiercely debated.
Was she guilty of the charges against her? Were there dark forces behind the scenes plotting her downfall? Was Anne the victim of court gossip? Did careless talk cost lives?
We know that Anne could be feisty and sometimes even flirtatious, but it's extremely doubtful that Anne would commit adultery. Frustratingly, we don't have the evidence to give us a clear picture of what was going on. But perhaps we can understand Anne's downfall through a more recent royal scandal. Former courtier Patrick Jeffson was Princess Diana's private secretary.
I think there are some parallels with Diana there, where some of her critics, some of them quite close to the royal establishment, have tried to paint her as a loose cannon. Whereas the truth was she was an extremely dutiful princess.
Well, Diana was painted as this woman who had many lovers. Anne was, of course, as well. And it's extraordinary to me that 500 years later, the way you can really blacken a woman's name is to suggest that she's some sort of sexual predator.
I think they were both very sassy women, and you can't sass around in court and not expect to bear the consequences sooner or later. When your usefulness has been outlived, then you better watch out. In other words, they would find anything they could to condemn her in the eyes of the world.
It seems to be at the heart of this question about Henry and Anne is the question of scandal. And of course you have been in a court that had a certain amount of scandal associated with it. I mean, what can we learn from that?
Scandal is one way in which courtiers or those who make their living from the court are able to sort out their own pecking order. And when scandal doesn't exist, then there will always be somebody around to create it.
And I think the extraordinary thing about Henry is, my conviction is that he does genuinely believe that she's committed adultery.
Because there would be nobody who wanted to keep their head on their shoulders who was going to tell him he got it wrong. And this is why today I think it is still the case that to give advice to a royal person, let alone tell a royal person they're getting it wrong, that's quite an art. And I don't know how many people have got that art or want to exercise it. There is nobody, I think, today who will tell senior members of the royal family that they're getting it wrong.
According to one account, when rumours of Anne's infidelity reached Henry, he was shocked and his colour changed. He immediately ordered an investigation into the allegations. Arguably the most damaging and hurtful of these involved adultery and treason with one of the king's oldest friends, Henry Norris. Norris was a gentleman of Henry VIII's privy chamber and a groom of the stall, a role that traditionally entailed wiping the royal bottom. In reality, it meant that Norris was Henry's closest companion, someone he truly trusted. But in Henry's court, walls had ears. No one was immune from the deadly consequences of rumour and gossip. In an indiscreet conversation, the Queen was said to have asked Norris why he hadn't got married yet. And when he replied that he would tarry a time, Anne said,
"You look for dead men's shoes. For if aught came to the king but good, you would look to have me."
In other words, you want to marry me when my husband's dead, don't you? Norris's response, that he'd rather his head were off, suggests he knew that they'd committed a serious faux pas. They had imagined the king's death, which under the Treasons Act was illegal.
Henry launched an investigation into Norris's conduct, along with many others who were suspected of having had sexual intercourse with the Queen, among them her own brother, George. Anne's final downfall was swift and sudden. It began with what should have been a day of celebration for the King and Queen at Greenwich Palace.
It was May Day, they were at a tournament. They were having a very nice time until some unwelcome news arrived for Henry. It turned out that a musician who'd been interrogated, possibly under torture, had confessed to sexual intercourse with Anne on 3 occasions.
It's my opinion that Henry believed the accusations, and they had the power to destroy his masculine honour, something he valued more than his love for Anne. Henry couldn't be seen as a king who had no control over his wife. He abruptly left Greenwich, taking Norris with him, and whatever was said on that journey back to London was enough to convince Henry that his closest friend was guilty too. Norris in London, on the scaffold.
Henry would never see Anne again. She would never have a chance to meet her husband, to talk it through, to give her side of the story, to protest her innocence.
That same night, alone at Greenwich Palace, Anne was given all the usual attention of the Queen. She was still completely unaware that her life was unraveling.
Early in the the 2nd of May, and from Greenwich to the Tower by barge. She had no idea why.
She could never have imagined that she was experiencing her final moments of freedom.
She travelled in through this water gate in St Thomas's Tower, now known as Traitor's Gate. In those days, the Thames came up all the way to these stairs. And of course, we have this sense, with hindsight, that that was the beginning of the end, that she must have known it was all up. But Anne wouldn't have known that. No one considered for an instant that a Queen of England might lose her head.
Sometime after arriving at the royal apartments at the Tower, Anne was accused of a long list of sexual crimes and treasonous acts. We don't know how the news was broken to her or how she reacted. Henry, meanwhile, simply disappeared from public life, no doubt wanting to escape the hurt and embarrassment that his wife's trial would bring.
I'm walking where the royal apartments used to be, where kings and queens stayed the night before their coronation, because to hold the Tower was to hold London and was to indicate that you really held England. And of course it was where Anne stayed on the night before her coronation, and again on the night before her execution. It was also the site of the Great Hall, which held 2,000 people, and where Anne's trial was held.
Anne's trial took place in front of 2,000 people, and she was judged by a jury of peers, her own uncle, the Duke. Surviving documents from the trial reveal some of the more salacious accusations levelled at Anne.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing these. This document is an extraordinary one because it is a record of that trial. This is the indictment. This is the charges laid out against Anne. It says, for example, that Anne has diabolically seduced these men because of her frail and carnal appetites, because of her lust. It doesn't stop here. It goes on and on. Over here, it describes Anne's relationships with these various men. So it mentions here, for example, Henry Norris, and says that he has violated and carnally known the Queen. And then it mentions George Boleyn, Anne's brother. And this bit's particularly lurid. It says that she has allured the said George into putting his tongue in her mouth, and she has put her tongue in his mouth. This is a picture of Anne as sexual predator.
And that's exactly how Henry wanted her to appear. No man could possibly keep control of a wife with such a depraved sexual appetite. Not even the king. Henry was conspicuous by his absence from the trial. It was a tactic that completely rebounded on him.
Henry stayed away because it was really humiliating for him to have his wife accused of adultery. It suggested at this time his lack of sexual dominance, his lack of sexual prowess, and indeed that's precisely what came out of the trial. George Boleyn, Lord Watchford, Anne's brother, was given a piece of paper that he was told not to read out loud, but he did, and on it was the charge that he and Anne had laughed at the king's manner of dressing, had laughed at his terrible poetry, and above all, that Anne had said that the king was not skillful in copulating with a woman and had neither vigour nor potency. Remember, that's in front of that crowd of 2,000. Henry was right to stay away.
Anne was convicted on all counts. She now had just 3 days to live. The outcome of Anne Boleyn's trial was never in doubt. By a jury loyal to the king, she was unanimously found guilty of adultery, incest, and high treason. Sentenced to death and with nothing to lose, it was now Anne's chance to tell her side of the story.
I am entirely innocent of all these accusations, so I cannot ask pardon of God for them. I have been always a faithful and loyal wife to the king. I've not perhaps at all times shown him that humility and reverence that his goodness to me and the honour to which he raised me did deserve.
In some ways, Anne's trial speech is entirely straightforward. She says that she is innocent, that she has always been a loyal wife to the king. But then there's that curious line about not having shown him the humility and reverence that his goodness to her and the position to which he raised her justified. In other words, she's admitting that actually she's been a bit feisty, that perhaps she's spoken back, she's been out of line from time to time. She hasn't always been the wife that Henry wanted her to be.
I have had fancies and suspicions of him, which I had not strength nor discretion to resist. But God knows, and as my witness, I have never failed otherwise towards him. And I shall never confess any otherwise.
Anne claimed, both before and after taking the communion, that she was innocent, on peril of her soul's damnation. And I think she was. I also don't think there's any evidence to sustain the idea that Henry wanted to get rid of her. In fact, I think what happened to Anne was a terrible mishap, that actually Anne managed to look guilty when she wasn't. Her sophisticated conversational wit, her excellence at the courtly game, was where she came unstuck. Exactly what had beguiled Henry in the first place made her look guilty as sin. So like a Shakespearean tragedy, the king, feeling betrayed and hurt, sentenced the queen that he loved to death for crimes she didn't commit.
I think that the concubines that he passed to Elizabeth will be excluded from the succession. And that the king will get himself requested by Parliament to marry. The joy shown by the people every day, not only at the royal court, but at the hope the princess will marry is inconceivable.
There can be only one.
While Anne awaited her execution in her chambers at the Tower, she may well have heard the commotion outside. The 5 men she was accused of sleeping with, including
Daddy
her father,
Dilkers
were
is such a funny phrase.
beheaded.
Daddy
How she
Dilkers.
must have felt. We can't be certain, but it is believed that this is the prayer book that Anne had with her in the Tower. I've spent a lot of time thinking about Anne's weeks in the Tower, how she racked her brains, how she tried to figure out what had got her into that mess, the hysteria, the trauma, the terrible time she must have had. And the idea that she had this with her at the time, and that I'm now holding it in my hands, is something I can't quite express. This is the wonder of history, this tangible sense of reaching. What's even more extraordinary about it is but what she wrote has a haunting resonance. It says, "Remember me when you do pray, that hope doth lead from day to day."
Remember me when you do pray, that hope doth lead from day to day.
And she signed it, Anne Anne left her chambers at the tower a little before 8 o'clock in the morning. Awaiting her at the end of this short journey, an expert French swordsman, summoned by Henry as an act of mercy. For a dignified execution befitting a queen, a scaffold had been erected inside the walls of the tower, away from the public. An eyewitness reported Anne's final words.
Good Christian people, I'm come hither to die. For according to the law, and by the law, I'm judged to die. Therefore, I shall speak nothing against it. I'm come hither to accuse no man, or to speak anything of that, whereof I'm accused and condemned to die. But I pray, God save the king, and send him long to reign over you all. For a gentler, nor a more merciful prince was there never. And to me, he was ever a good, a gentle, sovereign lord. And if any person will meddle of my cause, I require them to judge the best. And thus, I take my leave of this world, and I heartily desire you all to pray for me. Oh Lord God, have mercy on my soul to Christ.
I like fucking with these people. It's actually quite fun. God damn it. Come over here. Come over here.
The Queen of England was beheaded with a single clean strike of the French blade. This is the Chapel Royal of St. Peter ad Vincula, a parish church within the walls of the Tower of London.
After Anne was executed, she was brought here to be buried, or at least most of her was. If they did what they did with other traitors, they would have taken her head, boiled it, tarred it, and put it on a spike on London Bridge before throwing it into the swirling Thames. But the rest of her is here, somewhere beneath my feet, and this is where she should be remembered.
Today on Brief History, we discuss one of the most famous queens of England and indeed the world. Overcoming many odds on her unlikely path to the throne, she would use the experiences of her past to defend her liberty and kingdom from foreign threats. Her time as queen would see elegant courtships, bloody reprisals, international strife, and the execution of a fellow sovereign queen. Join me as I take a brief look at the Virgin Queen, remembered today as Queen Elizabeth I of England.
What the hell is it? What the hell are we like? Oh yeah, okay. So that one finally ended, huh? All right. Okay, we'll watch your big tree video. You seem to really want me to watch the... Oh, I turned the volume off, so we'll just watch the artwork, because I'm sure that the music and the approach and all the drama and the sound is just going to annoy me. So we can just watch all the pretty colors and the cool screen stuff and stuff's going on in the background and or whatever. Something about a tree. we be we be hitting the trees, you know. Oh, I'm being hit. I'm being hit. You're gonna kill me. You're gonna kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. No, no, no fair. No fair, you dick. You dick, you dick, you dick. I will get revenge. That was mean. I was in a cutscene. You dick, you dick. Would you make it so I can be hit while I'm in the cutscene? That's so dumb. Oh, I have to go back there again. Ah, damn it, stupid dick. Ah. Fuck. I don't know if I should have come down here, maybe. Oh. Yeah, let me back up again. I didn't want to commit yet. I kind of fucked up here. Yeah, yeah. Just take me back up to the top again. Yeah. And then how's the music out here? Is it better? It seemed kind of negative last time I did it. Yeah, this is good. my god, what? Stupid thing. I'm scared to commit now. Oh god. Well, he's not flagged, so... I'll help this guy, I don't care. Fucking annoying. I was trying to enjoy this stupid thing, you stupid thing. Oh god, where do I live? I feel like I'm homeless. I don't know, where do I live now? Is it way up there? I think it's way up there, right? Yeah, I'm way up there, yeah. I'm like, I'm sober as I smoke my hash. Oh, that got cleared out fast. Ah, so did you. Who? Who? So dumb. Teddy innocent 20 guns drawn and shit. Anti-immigrations. I have to get in there and I don't know how. They blocked it. It's so annoying. Is this it? Yeah, this is it. Let me in there. No. Let me up there. Yeah, like up on that thing. Yeah, let me on that thing. You have to let me on that thing. Let me on that thing. Aw. Stupid thing. How do you go in there? How do I get in there? I don't know. No, we don't. Go back to. It is. I can't get in there. Why? Why are you like this? It's so annoying. How the fuck do you get in this stupid place? What is it? Like, did that guy figure it out? He must have figured it out. It must be back there or whatever. I mean, like what is this stupid thing? Like, how do... Oh, shit. That's like the backside. Oh, okay. Is that... Okay. Yeah, is that right? No. You're just having me come around to this fence that's, like, fenced in again. This is, like, not it. Where is this stupid thing? Unlock Sanctum Gate. What do you mean by that? Unlock Sanctum Gate. Like, what does that mean? You talking about this? Oh my god, are you fucking serious? Could you be less obvious? Come on, man. Fucking dumb. It's like a lock on the door, man. Like, there's a lock on the door. You gotta hold E. Like right here, this door. You come here and you hold E. Here, come to door. Door, right here. Right here. Yeah. Well, at least he got it. Yeah, right here, and then hold E right here. Oh, alright. What the fuck? The heart gem? Oh, I didn't get it. Oops. What's up? How you doing? Oi. Oh no, what are we doing here? Hey, die. Ooh. 950. Get in this place. I don't really understand it. Oh! Wait, I've done this before. Yeah, I think I've done this before, yeah. How do you get in here? I don't really understand it. I guess I'm on top of it. But I don't really understand how this works here. You say there's like a row going in here. Oh, here we go. Okay. I was like, where's the entrance to this stupid place? I'm like... I will kill you. I will kill you. Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh. But, oh. So annoying, this stupid layout. keep moving. It's like, yeah. You keep moving it perfectly where I get it. It's so stupid. Damn it, what else is left? Harvest lush sugar sap from the young trees and lush hideaway. What do you mean from young tree? Oh, young trees. Okay, these things. Oh, okay. God damn it. Medium footwear. B-O-P. B-O-P. B-O-E. Green, green, green. That one, I mean, I don't care about that. No. No. I already know that, I guess. But hey, and I already know that, I guess. So, yeah, cool. Alright, so... Now what? Wait, what? Oh, yeah, something? No? Oh, yeah. Oh. Gloves. 500 BOE medium gloves, which is 150 higher. Wow, that really hurt, whatever that was. Jesus. Fuck was that, man? Fuck was that, man? Fuck you, man. Fuck you up and burn you. Yep. Oh, and then the axe comes in. So I guess I'm done here, huh? Yeah. No. Wait, do you want something else here? Defeat the Angry Earth leader at the Azov Tree. Oh, okay. I guess I do have another quest, huh? Okay. Shit. Oh, come on. Come on. Oh. Oh, come on, man. Oh, God. Please let me over. Oh. One more second. I got it. Alright. Fuck you. Oh, my God, you're annoying. Ah. I will burn you. Die. Die. So annoying. You too, fucker. Die. Oh. Ah, I can't move. Die. Ugh. Stressful with all the tree roots and everything. So annoying. I don't know. I don't even see like a goal here. Oh, it's near Cara Dune. Okay, you want me to go? You want me to backtrack here? Well, either way. Okay. So, bitch, can't start none, won't be none. A pleasure. Thank you. What up, man? I'm not gonna fuck with you. I'm here to help you. What is going on? Thank you.
Nah, but he's nah.
I know, right?
Yo, how's it going, ladies? We do this one or what? Yo, sir, how do I get in this, Sean?
I don't know. I just hit E.
Oh, you hit E? Yeah, let me try it.
Yeah, like it's like an activate.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if
Damn,
it's.
you bad as hell.
I don't know if it's solo. I'm gonna try.
Is it solo? I mean, I usually do stuff solo, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it is solo. Yeah, it is solo. Yeah. Come on, man, move. I can't get out of it. Ugh. Oh. Damn it. Oh. Oh no. Okay, guys, I think I'm gonna stop here. It's been about exactly 14 hours, I believe, or some such. Yeah. I think, yeah, exactly. I did a 10-hour session before I reset on, because I had a Streamlabs problem. So I'm gonna shut this game off here. It was a good session, got a lot done. I'm up to almost level 40 now, getting like 10 levels a day. Doing pretty good, trying to get my core skills up to where all the fundamentals and all the questing is done. I didn't skip anything. And my hours go up, and I like New World, and I think it's a much healthier place for me, and I can definitely focus a lot better, and